Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this licensing panel on Monday the 15th of February here at Harrow Council. Firstly, before we begin, just a request, please, that unless you're speaking or a member of the panel, please do put yourself on mute. When you are speaking, please do unmute yourself, but once you stop speaking, please go back on mute. That would be greatly appreciated. There are a number of you on the call and it will just help us manage the meeting a little bit better. Thank you very much. As I said, welcome to this licensing panel meeting here today. My name is Councillor Pramesh Patel. I'm a councillor for Roxif Ward at Harrow Council, and I will be chairing today. I'll just first of all like to welcome you all to this meeting. Present at the meeting are members of the panel, other members including ward councillors, officers, applicants and objectors. Can I refer members and officers to the published protocols for holding virtual meetings? Can I ask the panel to note that the Licensing Act and Gambling Act panel meetings have particular rules about participation based on the legislation, and that the legal advisor to the panel can advise members of the rules if needed. Can the panel please also note the following? Members of the committee should ensure that they have their videos on at all times, but to put microphones on mute when they're speaking. Other members and participants should switch off their videos and put microphones on mute until they're invited to speak. In case of a technical problem, the meeting will adjourn until the issue is resolved. If the technical problem persists and the meeting is inquorate, that means 3 councillors, the meeting will be abandoned and rearranged for a later date. This meeting is being audio and video recorded and will be available to watch and listen on the website. Please switch off your mobile phones and put them on silent mode. Okay, first of all, declarations of interest. Do any members of the committee or other members wish to declare any interest? Can I please remind members, when declaring interest, members must identify the item on the agenda, state the nature of the interest, disclose all pecuniary or non-pecuniary, and outline the interest itself. Are there any interests to declare?
Very much. Just need to say, this is Councillor Chowen. The application, the person who made the application, I've been into his other restaurant, which is only down the road, Daba. So I've been there to eat a number of times, or a couple of times, just to let you know, just to make that aware. But that doesn't jeopardize the meeting, to be honest.
Thank you, Councillor Chohan. That is noted. Okay, going on to minutes. Can the panel please note that licensing meetings are approved following each meeting by the member serving on that particular occasion and signed on as a correct record by the chair for that particular meeting. They are therefore not submitted to the next panel for approval. Can the panel note that the licensing procedure that will be followed as set out on pages 5 and 6 of the agenda, and that is what we'll be following. Okay, the application for a new premises license for Moka Pan Asian 246 to 248 Uxbridge Road, Hatch End, HA5 4HS will now begin. I've already introduced myself. I'm Pramesh Patel, as I mentioned, one of the councillors chairing the meeting. Could I please request that the other members of the panel introduce themselves? Councillor Proctor, could you go first, please?
Evening all, my name is Councillor Natasha Proctor. I am a councillor for Wealdstone Ward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chohan?
Good evening, I'm Councillor Chohan. I'm the councillor for Harrow Weald Ward.
Thank you. Could I please ask the officers present to introduce themselves as well, please?
Good evening, my name's Ash Regella and I'm the licensing officer for Harrow Council.
Thank you.
Alexander Lashowski, I'm another licensing officer for Harrow Council.
Thank you, Alex. Great. Could I please ask the applicants to introduce themselves, please?
Good evening, sir. My name is Sivashankar. I am the agent for the applicant on behalf of Compliance Direct Limited.
Thank you, Mr. Shankar. There are a number of objectors on the call, so forgive me, I won't ask you to introduce yourself right now. When we come to you later in the agenda and you speak, I would invite you to speak at that particular occasion, to introduce yourself and tell us who you are at that particular time. Okay, so I'll just very quickly run over the procedure for today. We will first have the presentation by the licensing officer at Harrow Council. We will then have the presentation by the applicant of their statement, followed by presentation by any other persons who have made representation supporting the applicant's case, if there are any. There will then be an opportunity for questioning of the applicant by the objectors and then by the panel. We then move to presentation by the objectors, and that will then be followed by questioning of the objectors by the applicant and also the panel. We will then finish with concluding statements by both the objectors and the applicants. Following that, the panel will then leave this public meeting. We will withdraw to consider the evidence presented to make our decision. The decision will then be made public within 5 days. Okay, we'll now move on to the presentation of the report by the licensing officer. So please take it away.
Thank you, Chair. Tonight I'm being accompanied by my colleague in the licensing team, Alex Lisowski. He's not here as a responsible authority, but as an officer of the licensing authority. This is an application for a new premises license for Moka Pan Asian, 246 to 248 Uxbridge Road, Harrow, HA54HS. This premises used to be known as Pizza Express. It does currently benefit from a premises license, which is attached to the report. The new application proposes longer hours and different licensable activities than the current license. The police and licensing authorities have worked with the applicant and agreed a set of conditions which appear on Appendix 5 of the report. Since there are still representations which are not resolved, a hearing is necessary to determine the application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ash. Alex, do you want to add anything to that?
No, Chair, there's nothing I need to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we then move to the presentation by the applicant of their statement. So I think that's Mr. Jefferson-Carr, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, panel, and thank you, everybody. Good evening. Before I go into my presentations, I just want to sort of raise a legal issue. It doesn't affect us so much, but I just want to sort of put it in record that I have raised that issue. We had representations initially received by licensing authority and the police, and I believe Alex Lisowski was the licensing officer who made the representation on behalf of the licensing authority. However, we have resolved those representations by the police and the licensing authority. Since there are no more matters, we have made them as conditions. My concern is, one, the licensing officer who acted as the licensing authority, then suddenly he can't swap and become as a relevant authority officer to attend this hearing. He needs to make his mind whether he wants to remain as a responsible authority, because the guidance is very clear on this and the law is very clear. There are Chinese walls erected between licensing authority when they act as a responsible authority. So I'm a little bit concerned that, I mean, I have no issues, Alex, being here as a witness, as an observer, but partaking in this meeting as a relevant authority officer does cause a problem. You can clear it up with your legal. Thank you.
If I can just interrupt there, sir. I did actually mention in my introduction that Alex is not here.
Ash, you put yourself on mute.
Can you hear me now? Thank you.
Yes, please start again.
I did actually mention at the beginning of my introduction that Alex Lisowski is not here, not attending today as a licensing responsible authority, but he is simply here as a member of the licensing authority. The representations, as Mr. Sivashankar quite rightly states, has been resolved. So there is no representation from the licensing authority. He is just here today to answer any questions of procedure or provide the panel with any guidance necessary, the same as I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Ash. Are you happy with that explanation, Mr. Sivashankar?
I'm afraid not, sir, because today's Mr. Vagela's position is a relevant authority officer here to advise you on issues. But Alex has already taken a position as a responsible authority. Hence, for this application, he has ruled himself out as a relevant authority officer, and his presence here is merely an observer. He cannot actually take part. That's my view.
Okay.
That's
sorry.
absolutely fine, sir. I'm quite happy to answer any questions that the panel might have. If Alex wants to just observe tonight, that's fine.
I think if Alex is just shadowing and observing, that's fine, but he will not be able to answer any questions.
That's fine. So, I mean, as I say, we have resolved the representation, so it's not a problem. But I just want to sort of make sure that we are following the guidance and the regulations properly.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so it's been noted, and Alex will not be answering any questions. You just be shadowing.
Thank you, sir. So the application, as you know, this premises has been a restaurant for a number of years. Actually, there is a current license in place for these premises, which has been transferred to another one of our directors' companies. And that license is attached on page 131 of the agenda papers, if anybody want to quickly refer that, because it will be useful to stay there, because I want to sort of talk a little bit about what's happening. So if you go to page,
Mr. Sivashankar, do you want to repeat that, just so everyone's got the page? Who's
sure,
listening?
page 131 on the agenda papers is the existing license for this premises, which has been transferred to another company of the same directors. When Pizza Express closed down, went bust, during the period, the license was transferred within 30 days of Pizza Express closing down. So there is an existing license at the property, which is for sale of alcohol between 10 o'clock and midnight on Monday to Saturday, and Sundays on 10 o'clock to 11:30. And it has no closing hours for public, because this is one of the transported license from the previous legislation. So there is no closing hours for public, and also there are no conditions attached to this license. I just want to sort of bring that to your attention to that. So on that basis, and we have also, and as you know, our current license is on page, our current application is quite early on the things. Let me just get that page plan 41. I think it's around page 35. I know it's a bit difficult to sort of work along the online applications. So we have currently applied for longer hours than those. There are two reasons we are applying for a new premises license, even though there is one existing license, because we have the plan is actually considerably changed in the new premises license. There's a planning application for a slight extension to the existing premises, so which actually slightly increases the numbers. Hence the new application, and also we are relooking at the new whole operation of these premises. Given the residents' concerns, my client is very keen to sort of try and resolve these issues as much as he can within certain limits. So we are currently amending at this moment in time. So I want to sort of go through certain amendments to the application hours. So we are reducing the operating time that we have applied for sale of alcohol on Sunday to Thursdays to close at midnight rather than 1 o'clock as we asked. We want to close sale of alcohol at midnight on Sunday to Thursdays. Fridays and Saturdays remain as it is. There is no change. And the regulated entertainment also on Sunday to Thursdays to finish at 12 o'clock. And late night refreshment to finish at 12:30. So that's the new amendments to this application for Sunday to Thursday. We are reducing the hours considerably right through the week, and only on Fridays and Saturdays it remains as our application as it stands. And we have also we have agreed quite a number of conditions.
Mr. Sheffield, I don't wish to interrupt you because it's not down to it's not just a question yet, but can you just repeat that just for clarity, please, what your new proposal is?
So the new proposal is to reduce the opening times and the licensable activity times for Sunday to Thursday.
Right.
So we are stopping the alcohol on Sunday to Thursday at midnight, regulated entertainment at midnight, and late night refreshment at midnight 30. And the premises will be closed at midnight 30.
Thank you.
And on Fridays and Saturdays, no change, as the application remains as it is.
Thank you.
And as you know, so on page 137 of the agenda papers is a list of agreed conditions between the police and the responsible authority. We have agreed. There is quite a number of conditions. I would say most of them address some of the concerns or most of the concerns the residents have raised regarding public nuisance and public safety issues. As you know, the police, who is the main advisor for crime and disorder, is happy with these hours now. I mean, even before we were reduced the hours, they were happy with these conditions. The premises wouldn't undermine the licensing objectives on crime and disorder. And other responsible authorities, especially the EP, Environmental Protection Team, has not made any observations as to the undermining of public nuisance objective. So we are reasonably pleased with the responsible authorities and also with the licensing authority and the police and their objections and their concerns they have raised, that we have managed to sort of convince them and accepted quite stringent conditions to deal with most of the licensing, all of the licensing objectives. So we believe that this application is now with the reduced hours for Sunday to Thursday. It is more in line with what the residents are concerned about, and we hope the residents will take that into account in their continued objections. That's it for the time being, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Shivashankar, for that statement. Are there any other persons making representations in support of the applicant's case? No. OK, we now turn to questioning of the applicant or the representative by other persons. We begin with any questions by objectors. So the members of the public present who are objecting, who've notified us of their objections, if you could please use the raise hand facility and I will try and call you. And Mr. Shivashankar will then respond. Just a reminder, please, to those of you who are speaking to object to the statement, this is not an opportunity for you to present your statement. That comes afterwards when you have your own presentation. This is specifically to ask questions of what has been said, specifically by Mr. Shivashankar in his statement just now, please. Your presentation will come later. OK. Let me just work my way through these hands. Bear with me, sorry, my computer is very slow. It's trying to put up the hands now. OK, the first one I've got is a BJ Kalaria. Are you there, Mr. Kalaria?
Hi there.
Mr. Curry, can you just confirm, please, whether you have made reps to this, representations against this?
When you say representation, have I filled out the paperwork to say that I have a complaint against, or sorry, an objection against licensing?
Yes. Have you submitted a formal representation against this application?
I've done.
Sorry?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Please carry on.
Okay. So I'm a resident in the block of flats that will be adjacent to the restaurant. So where you've a couple of things. First, I don't really understand the conflict of interest that Alex is involved in, and as a resident, I'd like to get to the bottom of that because it was a uber, aggressive entrance from yourself, Shankar. So what's the background to that conflict of interest? As a resident, I want to make sure that there's a quorum here that's satisfied, because obviously we started off with Chancellor Chauhan saying that he's eaten at at the establishment that your customers or who you're representing, and then there's some sort of backstory behind a conflict of interest. So could we have a bit more information about that, please?
Sir, do you want me to explain, or do you want your legal officer to take this?
I don't mind, whoever. It's just relative to the conversation.
Okay. The way the Licensing Act is designed is that normally when an application is sent to the licensing authority, the licensing authority simply act as an administrator. That is, they make sure that the application is correctly filled in, advertised properly, and consulted properly with the responsible authorities. And that is the duty the licensing authority conducts as a relevant authority.
Mr. Shankar, sorry to interrupt. Sir, just to interject, I am legal for the council, and my name's Lena. And just before Shankar goes into the to the lengthy sort of licensing legislation, the meeting is quorate, so there is no issue around that at the moment. If you have any questions to Mr. Shankar about the application, I think that's what, if you can, we can focus on that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
So in relation to your change in your application, where's the assumption that the residents should be happy with that? Because from our perspective, Pizza Express never had a garden area, which you've already started your clients have already started to excavate. So obviously that implies that there's going to be more outdoor seating and areas that will obviously obscure will increase the noise pollution where we're based. I don't understand how reducing the hours is going to change that in any shape or form.
Okay, let me answer that particular question regarding the pizza. So let's go back to page 135 in the agenda paper, which is the existing license, and on page 135 there is a plan attached to the existing premises. Yep. And you would see at the rear of the premises, because the premises is drawn sort of on a landscape mode rather than portrait mode. So the entrance is on the right side, middle, and then you look at the left of it, there is a red line in a kind of like a funny shape, and that's the garden area for the existing restaurant. And actually, if you see that garden area is marked on a red line, which shows sale of alcohol is also allowed in that area. Now, whether the Pizza Hut used that area at the time in the past, I'm not very sure, but all I can tell you is that has been the case since 2005 or prior. That garden area has been in use, and it has been used to allow for sale of alcohol in that garden area, which we are not asking for sale of alcohol anymore. We are only looking for consumption in that area. Hence, our new plan, which is actually in page 41, there is no red line in the garden area because we are only expecting people to consume alcohol, and there won't be any sale of alcohol in that area.
People will still be drinking outside. That doesn't take away from the fact that people will be purchasing inside and consuming outside and past the hours of operation that Pizza Express was ever operating on. Also, you made a point about opening hours. You didn't say what time people would be turned out, and that didn't allay my fears about the garden area either. If you could answer those points.
Okay,
as well.
so on page 137 is where we have agreed conditions with the licensing authority and the police, and where it says the garden area will be emptied at 23:30 hours. So there won't be anybody after that time in the garden area.
Is that including on Fridays, Saturdays?
Right through, anytime.
Right, okay.
And there won't be any music or anything is applied to be played in the outdoors. They are all indoors, music is.
Yeah, so again, I would just allay to the fact that Pizza Express never had music. So where you're saying that, you know, it's similar conditions, it's not about the conditions, it's about the impacts that the change of ownership, let alone anything else, is going to have in terms of music, outdoor areas. That wasn't, and let's call a spade a spade. Pizza Express was never operating in a manner where people were partying outside. So whether the licenses says X, and I guess there is a legal element of this, let's talk about the residence element of it, not the legalities and the impact it's going to have on us. So, you know, you can point to pages and paragraphs and, you know, and plans, but the point is you are effectively changing the way that your business is, well, the business that's operating under that premises is going to impact, you know, us as residents, and regardless of the changes to the timing, it's still going to have significant impacts, to the point where I'm trying to sell my flat and people that are trying to purchase it already are aware and are turned off by the fact that this meeting's happening, and if the planning does go ahead, it's going to impact the sale of my property. So I can prove evidential documentary evidence that what a late license will impact the sale of a property. So just in relation to what you're saying there, just thought if you could allay any fears that I have, then that would be great.
Pizza Express could have provided entertainment up to 11 o'clock, and that is part of their license. They don't actually need license to provide entertainment when they are able to sell alcohol on the premises until 11 p.m. Whether they provided or not, I'm not very sure. I have never frequented the premises when it was operating. The idea for us is that, you know, it is very important. Hence, we have agreed numerous conditions with the police and the licensing authority to minimize or more or less remove any such concerns that the residents have, so that our operation does not in any way undermine the licensing objectives, by which means try and avoid making any problems or any type of nuisance, any concern that the residents may have. Now, I completely understand people who just look at the license hours and immediately think, oh my God, this is going to be a problem area. But I invite you to look at the whole picture as how this restaurant is. What are the conditions that we have agreed to operate this premises? And also we have reduced the weekday hours right back to Pizza Hut hours conditions. It's only Friday and Saturday now, slightly longer hours than what Pizza Hut had. But for that, compared to the existing license we have, which has absolutely no conditions at all, we have taken nearly, I'll tell you the number, additional conditions for these premises just for the 2 days operation. Now that we have cut down the Sunday to Thursday, it's on page 137. So we have taken on 19 additional very restrictive conditions just for the 2 days of this operation. So, and we hope those will completely stop any concerns that the residents will have.
Okay, just in relation to the concerns, so in terms of sound pollution, we already have another licensed operator in JD Wetherspoons operating a unit or two further away from the block of flats that we're living. And already there's a significant noise pollution from their operating hours, which between 11 and 12 on a Friday and Saturday is extremely rowdy. Unfortunately, we don't have the benefit of seeing the impact of what happened with fire and ice, because again, we weren't consulted as residents to be any party to that licensing. So, and luckily, well, not luckily, COVID has stopped us seeing what the impacts of having another bar with a license that's, you know, fairly late opening. But early in the summer where they had business, again, we could hear audibly their music and the rest of it. So I can't see how there will be less noise and less pollution created from your operations, and worse still, having an operating hour for Fridays and Saturday so late. That sounds ludicrous. I mean, it's not going to.
Mr. Correa, you'll have a chance to present your case later on. This is just a question, Mr. Shivashankar, on the specifics of his presentation. We'll come to. You'll all get a chance to speak later on. Do not worry. Okay, I'll just move on. So just a reminder, please. This is just about questioning of Mr. Shivashankar, who's representing the applicant, in relation to his statement that he's just made. You will have an opportunity to present your own case very, very shortly. And just a reminder that Harrow Council does not have a cumulative impact policy, so we're looking specifically at the impact and the licence objectives in relation to the specific application. David Summers, I have you next. Are you present, please?
Yes, I am present.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. Could you just confirm that you made representations prior to this meeting?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Thank you. Please do ask your questions.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have, I'm afraid, quite a few questions, and so if you bear with me, I would appreciate that. Let's just get a few simple ones out of the way. I'm working from the licensing panel, the report to the licensing panel by the officers, and we'll refer to various numbers in that report to help us go through this. Number two, can you clarify now that the hours of the proposed opening to the public have been amended on Saturday and Sunday from 3 AM to 2:30 AM? Is that correct?
That is correct, sir.
That is correct. Okay. So together we've got quite a new set of opening hours to the ones that have been put into the public domain in your application.
Sorry, can you repeat that, please?
The hours of opening now are quite different Monday through to Sunday to the ones that you made in your original application.
That is correct, sir.
So just to make sure that I understand this, on Saturday and Sunday morning it will be 2:30 in the morning, and on the other days it'll be for 12:30 the following morning. That is correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Does this 3 o'clock amendment to 2:30 and the other hours that you have now mentioned also apply to private hires and seasonal variations, such as on the Sunday before Bank Holiday and New Year's Eve? I'm just seeking clarification. I'm not debating whether this is right or wrong. I'm just trying to understand the rules, if you like.
No, they are not changed. Only Sunday to Thursday is the changed.
So what about the 3 o'clock? Will that be changed to 2:30 on a if you had a New Year's Eve?
No, the only thing that we have agreed with the so what we have agreed with the licensing authority is we actually asked for a 1 hour drinking up time on Friday and Saturday nights, and licensing authority suggested that to be half an hour. So our drinking up time will be only half an hour. So if you are licensed, so the licensable activity finish at 2 o'clock, the premises will be closed at 2:30, not 3. So everywhere where we say 3 now become 2:30. Only half an hour drinking up time now.
Okay, so that is I think you've answered my question, that wherever it's had 3 o'clock, it is now 2:30. Is that right?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. And will these hours that you've just enumerated apply to private hires as well?
That's the total hours. There are no changes other than that. Yeah.
So the documentation has to also explicitly say that this applies to private hires, because you do not mention private hires in your agreed conditions, Appendix 5.
So the premises license covers into private hire as well. So if somebody wants to hire the premises and want to use for longer hours than this, then we will have to put in a temporary event notice. We couldn't operate on this license.
the reason I'm just making a point of this is that you've been very precise, or sort of precise, and talking about public, whereas in your application you do talk about private. So I just wanted to be clear that it applied to anybody who used those facilities, whether it's public or private, and if they wanted to extend it beyond 2:30 or 12:30, then an additional license would be required. Is that correct?
For public events, yes.
And also for private events?
For ease of use, I will say yes, it is the same, but from the Licensing Act point of view, private event can be slightly different. And if there is no sale of alcohol, then it doesn't require licensing. And if they bring their own DJ, it doesn't require regulated entertainment, and it becomes complicated. But I would say if we are not planning to use these premises for private events as such. So anybody who book the premises, even as a whole booking, premises license will govern. And if they want to have longer hours, then we will have to put in a temporary event notice to the council.
Okay. Okay, I'm listening very carefully to what you say. Did you also just say that you could have live music for a private hire under the, because I'm not familiar with the details of the Licensing Act, it could be with the DJ?
Currently, we have applied regulated entertainment, which is we have applied for recorded music and dancing. We haven't applied for live music. So up till, but however, the Licensing Act and the Live Music Act allows us to provide live, if this license is granted for sale of alcohol, we can provide live music up to 11 o'clock without any additional requirement. Beyond that, we will have to come back to the council and get permission for that.
Okay, right. Okay, you clarified that. Can I then move on to the advertising of the application, which is number 11 in the officer's report? The advertising of the application was done as prescribed. However, can I just draw the panel's attention to the fact that I think this license appears in probably the Appendix 1. I don't have all the page numbers, but it's there. The actual times that are in the officer's report are not consistent with the applicant, the times that you put in your notice, your statutory notice. In particular, on Saturday, the times you have in the notice states that you can have alcohol sales from 2 o'clock in the morning till 10 o'clock in the morning. That, of course, is probably not what you meant, but nevertheless, this is a statutory notice that you have, and I put it up here for the camera can see it. Yep. Is what has been posted in the council's website. And I would make the point that, in fact, the statutory notice is the correct notice, not what's in the officer's report. The officer's report probably has no legal standing, but I'm aware that there's a legal officer on the call who no doubt can make some comment about this. And you might say, well, it's just an oversight, but then that would be fine if it wasn't just, if it was only one oversight, because I believe there are some others. If I draw attention to paragraph 17 in the officer's report, and the critical word "not" has been missing from your application. Now, it's a bit like me pleading.
Mr. Summers, can I just? It seems like you're presenting. You will have an opportunity to present your case.
I just want to get these points up because they are quite germane to getting some clarification, because we're trying to work from something which seems very fluid. At one moment, as objectors and residents, we are working from papers that have been presented. We follow the procedures of the applicant's documents, and the next minute we're finding things can be moved around or been agreed by other parties. We're just beginning to learn about these things, and critical things, a bit like me going to court and suddenly realizing that I have the papers before the judge have got the word guilty, but in fact I'm pleading not guilty. So suddenly I'm changing everything. So I don't find this very comfortable position to be in, that we've got critical things. 1 minute, either a document is a legal document complying with the Act or it's not. And I understand, you know, we have an agent on behalf of the applicant who's very well versed in these matters. And I would then say, why didn't the agents on behalf of the applicant double and triple check that all the paperwork was in order? However, I just make those points just at this point, and I leave it on the table for the councillors with the panel to make their own observations. Can I go to Pizza Express? The point has been made by the previous person on this call that what happened at Pizza Express was quite different. They certainly didn't have a music license and they didn't have an entertainment license or a dancing license. And I'm not aware that I frequented the premises, and I'm not aware that they ever did. So I think it's a little bit, we're not comparing like with like. And of course, the hours are quite different. And indeed, I would also take the point to the agent, if I may, that you've mentioned the license that Pizza Express had, but it's also true to say that there was a planning application, P060714, which is also in the pack for this evening. I think that is the, is it? I can't remember. Oh yes, it's Appendix 6. And the hours that are in there granted by the planning authority are quite different to the hours that are in the licensing. I think if I'm right, the hours are, well, no, the hours are different. There are various hours constraints in there and what can be done in the garden area. So we have Pizza Express, who had quite a different operation to what you are proposing. So I think it's a bit disingenuous to try and argue from the point of view of the Pizza Express. Officer's report, item number 16, makes considerable reference to Appendix 5. Now, Appendix 5 is written in a sort of note form, and I'm not sure what its legal status is because it's got no signature.
Mr. Smith, do you have a question for Mr. Shivashankar? Because we can come to this in your presentation.
Okay.
It's your specific question to Mr. Shivashankar.
Okay. Under what circumstances can food and or drink be taken away from this address? Because that's the first question I have to the agent or to the panel. By address, I mean taken away from the 246-248 Uxbridge Road.
Can I just clarify? You are saying use as a takeaway business, you mean?
For example.
Okay, so all restaurants with the planning use of A3 can do takeaway food because the planning restaurant is the primary purpose, but there is always they are open for takeaway food. Otherwise, during this lockdown, none of them could be able to do takeaway food, as you know. But even normal times, all restaurants have the ability to do takeaway food. And here we have, so it is the same thing that we are looking for here. There might be the odd people, the odd occasion. We expect there might be a minor element of a takeaway facility available. And along with the takeaway food, if somebody would want to order a bottle of wine, only with a takeaway meal, they might be able to take that bottle of wine with them. They will not be able to buy alcohol off the premises without a proper takeaway meal along with it.
So somebody off the street could come in and buy a meal and a bottle of wine or alcohol and walk out with it. Is that right?
Only a bottle of wine, sir. Unopened bottle of wine.
Okay. So you could also accept Uber deliveries. So it could become a public, putting aside the COVID restrictions, which I understand under emergency legislation. So it could become a takeaway in the evening after 11:30 till 12:30, when many other premises are closed. It could become a takeaway.
Well, as I say, the takeaway can only be a very small part of any restaurant, which is they are allowed to do. And we are not planning to do anything more than that. I mean, this is the restaurant. There's a lot of money is being spent on renovating these premises. It's currently closed. And the element is not to do takeaway. It is to run and operate as a restaurant.
Okay, but I'm just asking, it can be. Let me move on to children. Children can be admitted at all hours with the provision that after 9 o'clock, they have to be accompanied by an adult.
That's the condition. So there are some conditions we have agreed with the police and the responsible authorities. So there is a children's condition there, if I may. It is on page 138.
Yep.
So it says no children shall be admitted after 2100 hours unless accommodated by a responsible adult.
Okay, so a child could come into the premises at 12 o'clock at night with a responsible adult, whatever. I don't know how you define a child, but a child could come in. A child can stay, if they come in before 9 o'clock in the evening, say at 7 o'clock, and stay there till closing time. Is that correct?
If a family decide to stay longer on a Friday or Saturday,
no.
And they can.
Before 9 o'clock, they could come in without a responsible adult. A child could come in and be there without anybody until 12 o'clock at night.
We don't. I have never.
And I appreciate you don't want that to happen, but I'm looking. It is possible for this to happen. Okay, you've answered the point, and could stay there in fact till 2:30 in the morning on the 2 days where you've indicated, again with no responsible adult there at all if they came in before 9 o'clock.
No, so that's not what it says. That, I mean, if you want to clarify that condition, we are more than happy to clarify a condition that, no child cannot stay in the premises or be in the premises after 9 o'clock without a responsible adult. We wouldn't want any children to be without adult supervision at any time.
Okay, so therefore, you're making my point that therefore the Appendix 3, Appendix 5 is very loosely worded throughout the document and needs some professional work on that. So therefore, to comply with the Challenge 25 policy, does that mean a child would have to present an ID?
If the staff member, if only if they are, that is after 9 o'clock, obviously anybody the staff believe they are that a child under the age of 18 will have to demonstrate that they are over the age of 18 if they don't have adult supervision.
Okay.
But anytime if anybody want to buy alcohol, have to provide an ID to say that they are over 18.
Okay, I'll come back to that in a moment. It mentioned in item 14 of Appendix 5 about smokers that 6 people can smoke outside the premises, which for the purpose of that paragraph you defined it effectively means to be outside the address of 246 248 Uxbridge Road. Bearing in mind that immediately outside there's no curtilage belonging to your good selves or your principals. It's all public realm pavement. Unlike the adjacent establishments, the pub and Fire and Ice, who've got a considerable curtilage. Where would these people actually smoke? Because it would not be appropriate that they smoked on the public realm, whereby this would get you are interfering with people walking backwards and forwards, members of the public. They do not wish to breathe in the smoke.
This has been an issue for Pizza Express as well. This is not a suddenly new issue for us. Since 2007, when the Health Act came in and the smoking was banned indoors, every premises, whether they had a forecourt of their own or not, this is what they had to do. They had to mark out an area, or they had to keep an area marked out for the patrons to stay within this area. Do not obstruct the payment. Try not to obstruct the payment. This is a common problem for all venues, which are restaurants, pubs, since 2007. So this is not a particular issue for us. So we are just following what is custom and practice has been since 2007.
But with respect, notwithstanding the problems that previous people have had, I'm talking about you are applying for a license with respect, and you are talking specifically to accommodate smokers, right? So that whatever happened in the past has happened. We're talking almost today as if we've got a clean sheet. The world has moved on, and I don't think the public wish to be inconvenienced and smell your customers' second-hand tobacco smoke. So I'm saying, where will the smokers smoke without interfering with the public? They should not be smoking on the public realm.
Well, I think I have answered this question, sir.
You're saying that they will. Okay, that's the point there. And if you will you be providing then ashtrays for them?
We would make sure that the area is kept clean all the time, yes.
Okay. I'll leave that for the panel to draw their conclusions. Numbers 15 and 16, 1 minute in at 15 you're talking about door supervisors, and then 16 you're talking about security staff. Are they one and the same people?
They are.
Okay, so again, that needs to be tidied up in terms of what that is. So these would be the people who would be monitoring children coming in and out of the door, wouldn't they?
The security staff are only there on Fridays and Saturdays. That is only if we are actually opening beyond 1:30. Otherwise, there is no security staff will be available, especially now that we have reduced the hours on Sunday to Thursday. There won't be any security staff available.
I see. Okay, you clarify that. And would that Friday and Saturday would apply if there was private functions? So if there's a private function on any other day, they wouldn't be there?
No, security staff is only there if we are opening beyond 1:30 at night.
Okay. 1:30 beyond 1:30, you mean till 2:30?
1:30, yeah, beyond 1:30, yeah.
Beyond 1:30.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I just want to pick up on the noise, nothing to do with my presentation later, and the hours that you've got there. Clearly, the noise is going to be from two sources: one inside the building and one outside the building. So the noise outside the building will be outside the licensable area, outside the red line. So it'll be from the pagoda and the garden area. Access to this area will be from the licensable area, and if I can read the drawing correctly, I think there are sliding doors between the two areas. Is that right? So every time the sliding door opens, probably with a sensor activating it to let the staff in and out so they can use both hands, or the clients, then noise will emanate out of the licensed area into the garden area. And of course, this noise then will carry through to the neighborhood. I just want to establish that as my understanding is correct.
Sure. So when you're looking at the plan is on page 41 for others who are not in the same page. So the pages on the new plans are on page 41. So within the building, on the top left-hand part of it is the new area where we have kind of extending. Currently, there's a planning application waiting for that part to be completed. So that is actually like a conservatory type of arrangement, and there won't be no speakers or anything. So it's more of like a lobby area where people are sitting there, but there are no speakers will be installed in that area. So they will see another line where the original building line is, and that's the main area where the regulated entertainment noise will be. So this actually acts as like a lobby, like the front lobby we have. When that gets opened, it actually there is no music is generated in that conservatory area. If you with me,
I understand. You seem to be using. I misunderstand. You seem to be using now a new drawing, not the drawing that was originally submitted in your license application, which is in Appendix 1. Is that correct?
No, the page 41 is the drawing that is submitted with the application, sir.
Right, and the drawing that you're referring to, is that the drawing that's submitted with the planning application? Yeah,
it is correct.
Right, so we're now talking about a different drawing, and we're talking about a different licensing area. So therefore,
no, we're not.
The drawing that is with the planning application is not the same drawing as the drawing that you have submitted for this licensing application.
It is, yeah, it is.
No, I'm very sorry. I can't show them to you, but they are definitely different. They are definitely different.
Okay, we'll take that when I have a look at that.
Okay, because but going back to my point is that that when the doors are open to reach into the garden area, whatever you want to define, the garden, the pagoda, or whatever, sound will come out of that building into the garden area, and it will go into the neighborhood. Nothing to do with loudspeakers outside, but that is a fact, is it not? And
this is why I'm saying that in that area that we are not making any music. Hence, that is more of like a lobby protection it gives you.
Okay. Okay. I'm very concerned about this planning application because in your licensing application, there was absolutely no reference to this planning application. that you mentioned in your introductory remarks, and if you hadn't mentioned it, I certainly would have done.
Because they are two different regimes, sir.
I understand that, but in fact, the officer makes the point in his discussion about the need for it to be a degree of integration. And the planning application was registered on the 24th of November, which was giving you good time to include mention of it in the licensing application, and particularly if you're going to use a drawing, which I think you seem now to have done, which is different to the one that you put in the licensing application, because that is presumably the one that we should be considering this evening.
Okay, so let me stop this confusion, sir. The difficulty is, I mean, this is the plan, in my opinion, in my knowledge, we have submitted to the planning application. The reason I tell you why. If we have submitted a different drawing to the planning application, and if that application is granted by the planners, and if that drawing is different, if that plan is different, and if we to implement that plan, and then this license with this plan cannot be used with that plan. So if the drawing changes, if the layout plan changes, we had to come back to the council with a variation to implement that new plan. So your worry regarding planning will be determined by that, because we couldn't use a different layout to what is submitted to this application if the planning drawing is different. And that's why I'm saying that this is the planning drawing that we have submitted. When the planning is granted, only we can do this work. And if the planning is not granted for whatever reason, then we won't be able to use this plan. We have to go back to the existing plan, which is on page 135, which is the existing plan, and we had to go back to that. And for that, we had to come back to the council with a minor variation of this license, if it is granted, to use those plans.
Can I just come in here? So just to be clear, we're not considering planning matters, only licensing here.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind, Mr. Summers, just using any questioning relate that to the licensing application, please.
Okay, can I just then pick up one point, because it is mentioned in the officer's report about the coherence of the two eventually, that just to be aware that in the planning application, the hours that are requested are quite different to the ones in your licensing application. The hours in the planning application refer to 10 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, except on Sundays and bank holidays, when the opening hours would be from noon till 10 o'clock. So we're not talking about 11:30, 12:30, 1:30, 2:30, or any other days. We are talking of quite a different set of hours. I just make that point.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. Okay, it would be really helpful for those of you who, once you've spoken, to put your hands down. Thank you. Julian Moore, are you on the call?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Can you just confirm that you've made representations prior to this meeting?
Yes, I
Thank
have
you.
on behalf of the Hatch End Association.
Thank you. Please continue.
Thank you. My first question is just to try and get a clearer understanding of the proposed use of the premises. What are the proposed services to be provided by the bar restaurant? In layman's terms, is it to be a restaurant serving alcohol, a bar serving food, or a nightclub open till 2:30 in the morning with music and dancing and parties?
It's a restaurant serving food, sir, primarily.
Sorry?
It's a restaurant serving food. That's the primary purpose.
With alcohol?
With alcohol, yes, and with entertainment.
Thank you. Will recorded music and dancing be provided before the requirement for a license of 11 o'clock?
Sorry, sir, I don't understand the question. Can you repeat that?
Well, the license only asks for it dancing between 11 and closing time.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, what about before 11 o'clock? Is there dancing and recorded music from 10 o'clock in the morning?
Okay, so under the Licensing Act, if the premises is
yes, I'm aware of the Licensing Act.
Then you don't actually
need to apply for 11.
Yes.
My question was, is it provided before that?
It is possible. It's if somebody requests it, it may happen.
It may happen, but it's not going to be regular. So really, there's dancing and music all night.
The license is applied for as a normal license, but we don't expect this to happen on a regular event. This is probably on an occasion where some people are arranging some celebratory events or something like that. Only this is going to happen.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify, you haven't planning permission for the glazed screen area, I'll call it, with the retractable roof, with the trees in the middle of it. Is that correct?
I haven't actually looked at the planning permission, so that has been done by architects, separate architects, so I couldn't really comment on them to you. So
that at the moment, as far as the panel's concerned, it's a little misleading saying there is that area of the, you've called it a lobby, I think, into the garden area.
That is what I have been told by the
architect. Question, it's a statement, I'm sorry. What lighting is proposed for the garden area, and is it cut off if lighting is going to be provided? Because lighting pollution is a problem.
Again, sir, I have no information about the current level of lighting that is going to be provided in the garden. This again,
Thank you.
There are separate architects.
I just asked the panel to take this into account, and I would like a condition on lighting, the same as there is next door at the pub, where it's specified. What precautions are being taken to prevent the smell of cooking drifting across to the adjacent gardens and residential houses? We find this a bit of a problem in the hat chain.
I believe these premises already has an extractor system operating from the previous operators as pizza restaurants, and that the current extraction, I don't think we have any. I mean, I'll check it up with the environmental protection team whether there have been any issues regarding smell nuisance, but we haven't been informed, and that's the same extractor system we are planning to use.
I would like the panel to take that response into account. And finally, slightly more amusingly, the paper's page 31, application section 18D, prevention of public nuisance. For clarity, what is meant by no glass bottles will be emptied after 2100. As reading it, nobody's drinking after 2100 because there's going to be no empty bottle.
No, sir, it's one of the issues that we sometimes get from, we look at what time the kitchen staff emptying refuse before they close their premises. So sometimes kitchen staff only empty at the time when they close the premises, which will be quite late. I mean, on a weekday, it'll be 12:30. And we don't want them emptying empty wine bottles that is waiting in the kitchen at 12:30 and waking the residents up. And this is hence there's a condition that we are taking that any emptying of glass bottles will be happened by 9 o'clock.
So it's really no empty glass bottles will be put outside after 9 o'clock. It would be better if it said that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's my question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moore. I now move on to Mr. Peter Townsend. Are you present? Mr. Townsend? Is Mr. Townsend here? He's Mr. Townsend, if you're here, could you please indicate and put yourself off mute? Okay, I will move on. Mr. Ray Canero, apologies if I've got that surname wrong. Are you present?
Mr. Chairman, I think these gentlemen are present, but somehow they don't seem to realise they have to unmute themselves.
Hello. Thank you for that. Mr. Canero, if you turn yourself off mute, please.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you. We can now. Can I just ask you to confirm that you made representations, please?
I did.
Thank you. Please continue. Please continue.
I am off mute.
Yes, we can hear you. Please continue.
I did. Okay. I wanted to clarify on the garden because I'm not quite clear on what's been. Yeah, I wanted to clarify on the garden aspect because I wasn't clear on what's being proposed here. How many seats? Okay. How many seats are being proposed outside?
I couldn't give you I couldn't give you a number. I mean, I think the drawing shows a number of tables and chairs. I think it is just a schematic diagram rather than actually what that's going to happen. What we have taken a condition is that the garden will be emptied by 11:30 p.m. every day. Beyond that, I couldn't tell you exactly what the numbers they're going to be, sir.
Do you have another question, Mr. Canero?
Oh. Okay, I'm just getting the answers through. Sorry, I seem to have quite a delay in getting the responses. So I do have another question, but I'm having a problem with the sound.
Sorry, sir, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you. If you want to give your next question a go.
Okay, so we don't know how many seats are going to be outside, but it's going to be more than it was before.
I couldn't tell you, sir. As I said, I had never been to the premises before what they did, so this is just a schematic diagram I have. And looking at the drawings from the previous gardens, looks quite a similar size.
Okay. And it's also going to be nearer to the boundaries. I've much bigger use of the garden.
At the moment, as I said, schematically they have shown seating there, but finally how that will be, I am not very sure, sir.
So, can you hear me now?
We can hear you fine. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I think we've lost.
I think his connection dropped.
I think we've lost him. Okay. Right. Okay. Thank you for everyone who asked questions of the applicant's representative. We now move to questioning of the applicant by the panel. I will first go to Councillor Proctor, please. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Councillor Patel. Yes, I would like to just ask, so in terms of the planning application and the licensing applications changing, where was the reasoning behind that and the thinking behind changing them?
Sorry, Councillor, can you repeat that question? Sorry.
Just to have a bit more background on the reasons why you've changed the applications before you've come into us. What is it that has been said that has made you change things before this representation happened this evening?
Oh, you mean the reduction of hours?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as I say, the applicant is quite reluctant initially to change any matters. I mean, there is a lot of money has been spent in this refurb, but you know, I managed to sort of convince him that it's possibly, you know, we need to sort of look at residents' concerns and address them in some or other way. Hence, he has sort of finally agreed to sort of reduce the hours from Sunday to Thursdays. He's very keen on the Friday and Saturday hours as it is. And obviously he wants to demonstrate that we can operate a premises without concerning to the residents. And you know, if you are able to sort of gain their trust better by operating a better premises, and hopefully we could look back and see whether in the some future we might be able to get some longer hours for the rest of the days. But that's the current thinking.
Thank you. And just one more question I had as well. In terms of licensing for alcohol in the premises, will it be a case of people have to be seated or eating at the same time? Or can people be stood up? Can people be at a bar? Or will it be a case if you can have alcohol served with a meal rather than just as drinks? So
again, this is again matters raised by the licensing authority and the police, and we have taken conditions to say the alcohol will be seated and people will be seated having alcohol, and those are conditions that we have currently agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Proctor. Councillor Trahan.
Evening, Shankar.
Good evening, sir.
Just a few questions I need to ask you. I appreciate that you reduced the hours from Sunday to Thursday. I appreciate that. I can see that the residents taking concerns what the public and residents are thinking of. But I would prefer if, you know, I can see by the way they're talking, the residents, they're concerned about the Friday and Saturday, because I've actually asked the officers to give me the applications of all the applications of what licenses are around the area, and most of them are up to about 12:30. Apart from one of them, his license closes at 1:30, which is the pub next door to the premises that you're abiding by. But I'm just wondering, will you be able to change your timing to adapt to the residents and to make it feasible for everybody in the area? And not just that, one more thing, he will save money on the security guard because after 1:30 you have to employ security guards. So by having it 1 o'clock and then 1:30 they depart and close, it'd be better for everybody.
I take your point, sir, but as it's something that if that's going to be the deal breaker, then probably we have to live with that. But I would say, even though we have applied for 2 o'clock, we don't envisage that every weekend we are going to be opening till 2 o'clock. It is that odd occasion. It is something that is available. If especially, you know, I think the calculation is with the lockdown eventually coming to an end, people might be want to come out and relax a little bit more, see friends and family slightly longer, and it is not something that we are planning to open every weekend. But if we don't have that, and if we then want to do it, then we only got certain amount of temporary event notices we can do. And that also we have to give adequate 2-week notice to the council and things like that. So this is just to sort of cover that the odd occasion extension, but we don't envisage to use this extension every weekend. I don't think that the market is there. That is not the operation of the premises, sir. But as I say, if that is going to be a deal breaker, then I leave that to the panel to make the decision.
Thank you. Ramjit, you're on mute. I can see your lips moving.
It keeps going off. I don't know why. The other thing is regarding the garden area. I see that you'll be stopping serving alcohol from 2100 hours, and it says that it'll be open to 23:30 every day. I mean, you can understand the residents' concern regarding the noise. Is there any way there can be some maneuver there?
So we are pretty confident that our operation will be pretty good. And obviously, if there are concerns, we have, residents are just around us. They already know our details. They just have to come and tell us, then we can manage we can modify the operation as and when. Or if in worst case scenario, the residents have, or the licensing authority has the powers to deal with us. And we hope that that wouldn't happen there. But we just don't want to be, we want to be open to the local residents. It is mainly going to be used by the local residents. And if they do feel there are issues raising from our operation, which we sure that we won't. But even the best laid plans, there can be things go wrong. There might be some fine tuning needed, and we are more than happy to look at them when they arise. I mean, we just want to sort of have the flexibility for the time being to demonstrate that we can operate these hours.
It's only because the residents are the ones who are going to make you money in that restaurant, and you don't want to upset them because these other restaurants made money, and you want to make sure that you can cater for the restaurants, and you've got a pub next door, and we're here to ensure that the residents are happy, the panel is happy, and we don't have any antisocial behaviour. And it would be appreciated that something can be taken into consideration on what you can do as a resident to support them. I mean, if everything goes fine, everything goes okay, you can always apply for extended license later. But this is a license to ensure that the residents are happy now and actually secure the business for the future. As you can see, it's been locked down, there's been issues, it's been quiet, but when he opens up, you never know what's going to happen. But I'm just saying, for the applicant to have the hours, there should be some maneuver 50-50. I can see that you've done some of the changes. It'd be nice if you do some other changes to keep the residents happy. I mean, all I've heard from the residents is concerns, issues, timing, noise, but they haven't said much about the pub next door. So I'm only saying that just to help you to see what you would prefer and what can you do.
I completely agree with you, sir. And on that basis that we have taken on, as I say, just for these 2 days from the existing license, we have taken 19 additional conditions just to operate 2 days. Because for Sunday to Thursday, we can currently go back to our current license with no conditions, absolutely none of them. There is no condition regarding music, no condition regarding dancing, absolutely nothing in there. Not even a CCTV condition in there, sir.
Yeah.
So we have taken 19 conditions just for 2 days, and we believe that these conditions will control such problems quite well for us. And obviously, if they don't, we will certainly amend them.
The other thing is that I noticed on the condition you haven't put name badges on the staff who's going to work there, and will they all be trained? Those are the 2 conditions I don't see.
We have. There's a condition where all staff will be trained and records kept of training. There's a condition there, sir, to address that. And
name badges to be on each of the people working there. You want to make sure it's the same person on the application.
The guidance is very clear. Some of them minutiae of operation shouldn't be conditioned, but I would say as a customer-oriented facing operation, people will know who they serve them. If they had an issue with a particular member of staff, able to make a complaint. So those are matters I would imagine that any good operator would want to use. But conditioning them means that if a member of staff is not wearing it for a day, it is not only a managerial problem, it's become a criminal offense for my client. So I would say we need to be mindful of these conditions, and if the slightest breach of them make our client criminally liable, sir.
Okay, one more question. Is that place going to be a restaurant or a club? It doesn't. You see tables there and chairs.
Yes.
You don't see premises like it's going to be an area where they're going to be dancing and all that. Is it going to be a restaurant or a club?
Sir. Thank you for noticing. Exactly. This is a restaurant, sir. This is a restaurant which serves alcohol and provides some light entertainment. There may be the occasional dancing, but we have to have a license for that. Otherwise, we can't do that. We will be breaking the law. Hence, we have to put in the regulated entertainment. We had to put in the dancing there. Even if there is an occasional 2 or 3 people, even if they decided to dance. we will be breaking the law without having that in part of our license. So as you can see, the operation is very much a restaurant, food-based restaurant.
Are you looking at the back area to be the dance area?
No, sir, definitely not.
It's going to be a seating area.
It is.
Is it limited to amount of people in the back?
When you say back, this is the area.
The garden area.
So there will be no entertainment in the garden area. There is no music, no dancing, no regulated entertainment in the garden area. It is all indoors.
Okay, that's all I need to ask for the time being. Thanks, Anka.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ramji. Just a couple of questions from me, Mr. Shivashankar. A lot of it's been touched on already. The conditions you've already agreed to, can you just double confirm, please, that you're happy to agree to those agreed conditions that are in the agenda? Yes, sir. That's on page 137. Yes, sir. Yep, they're all agreed, are they? It is, sir. On page on that page 138, I think it's condition 14, which limits the number of smokers outside. I mean, it says no drinks outside. Is that alcohol or any drinks? Just double. Any drinks, so they can't take any drinks outside. So they can't take any drinks outside. No. Okay, thank you. I've just been listening to some of the concerns about in relation to the outside garden area. Would limiting the number of people outside be something you'd be happy to agree to? I mean, because I have absolutely no idea what the capacity is. So agreeing to a number is difficult for me, but if that's something that the panel is confident that they are able to do that, I wouldn't have problems. But as I say, I actually don't know. I mean, looking at the drawing, I'm just giving you a number now. So the page 41 is the new plan. I'm just going to sort of count the seats they have provided, but it may not be nothing to do with what it is, but it's 4, 6, 8. 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, 40, 44, 60, 52. Currently, there's about 65 to 70 covers shown. But that's, I would say, that's just a schematic drawing rather than actually how it is going to be. Okay. Thank you for that, Mr. Trigger. That's into my questions. I noticed there's a couple of hands up. If I can ask you to just wait until we now come on to your representations, and you can ask and you can include them in that, please, as time is rapidly crouching down on us. We now move to presentation by the objectors. This follows the same format as with the applicant. So I'll invite the objectors to speak, and the objectors may then be questioned by the applicant and then the panel. I have a list of speakers or objectors that wish to speak. It is fairly long, so to ensure, I think at the moment I've got 36 people on the list, but what I will ask is, what I will do, sorry, is limit each individual speaker to no more than 5 minutes, just to enable to ensure that we get around to everyone who wishes to. With your consent, Mr. Shivashankar, as well, I think it may be most timely, it may be the best use of time, I think, if we hold off responding until all the objectors have spoken, unless you wish to respond to each one individually. No, so I'm more than happy to wait until they finish it. That's fine, sir. Yeah, okay. 5 minutes each is a long time compared to just one person from our side. Yeah. I don't believe all are present, and some have been written representation, so it shouldn't be that long, Mr. Shankar. Let me just pull up my list. Right. First of all, Raki Bogaita, are you present? No. Mr. and Mrs. Bilson, are you present? Catherine Bowles. Monica Bowles. Paul Burns. Raymond Canero. Amardeep Chana. Vikas Chauhan.
Hello?
Is that Mr. Chauhan?
Yes, it is. Hi, how are you?
Thank you. Hello. Thank you. I'm finally got someone who's actually here to speak. Mr. Chauhan, if you wish to present your objection, please.
Yes. See, Hatchend is a very quiet and residential locality, and a tranquil place as well. We just want to understand how many people eat food at 1 a.m. in the night, and those kind of restaurants don't remain open in Hatchend. Generally, the restaurants close at 11 o'clock, and that's what we would expect a restaurant to do. And apart from that, there's a lot of noise pollution and other things which keeps on coming around with the nuisance of alcohol drinkers and so on and so forth coming along at late nights. So from that perspective, we want to keep the opening hours restricted no more than 11. That's for sure. And also the smell aspect of it. Earlier, they are owning a similar restaurant out here. The chimneys are not, the exhaust facilities are not appropriate. So those kind of issues will still continue, even if they go to the new for this current location that we are talking about. I would also want to understand how they are going to manage the exit of people, because that is what is going to cause problems every now and again, and especially on the weekends when the customers have drank a lot of alcohol. Will they be making a lot of noise and nuisance around? So those are the issues that I have, and hence I would want to oppose this.
Thank you, Mr. Chauhan. Siobhan Creswell. Bipin Ditani. Alpa Gagda. Mr. and Mrs. Gohill. Hatch End Residents Association, please.
Yes.
Is that you, Mr. Moore?
Yes, Mr. Moore.
Thank you.
The Hatch End Association was founded in 1929 with the membership, and has a membership, some 1,600 households and 50 businesses in the Hatch End area. Myself, I've lived in Hatch End for 50 years and well remember the Railway Inn, the Carlton Tea Room, Barclays Bank and the main post office, which is the buildings we're talking about tonight. I just want to make the point that residents in Hatch End are happy to adjust to change as long as it doesn't destroy the pleasant, peaceful ambience of what I call the village. Our presentation this evening is the prevention of public nuisance. We're not against a licence for the premises, but the late opening proposed, which we consider will cause nuisance to residents in the adjacent properties. The late opening hours, which have now changed considerably so that it is basically the weekend open till 2:30 p.m. Is liable to cause disturbance to the residents in a wide area due to parking of cars in the Broadway, adjacent side roads, with the resulting noise and of slamming car doors and loud good nights. Additionally, the garden area is now changed to 11:30, which is the same as next door in the pub. So we still have concerns about even 11:30, where the noise goes to the adjacent working residents who require peaceful, undisturbed night sleeping conditions. We note the closure at weekends is now reduced to 2:30 in report item 3, but believe this is not a significant change. It's a reduction in drinking up time to more usual half hour and does not change our representation. We're glad to see that the Appendix 5, item 17 of the papers, that the garden will close at 11:30, 7 days a week. This is the same as the Moon and Sixpence license next door and is reasonable. However, it omits to a similar condition of lighting. The light in the Moon and Sixpence, the lights in the garden area must be off by 11:30, which should be added, we feel, to the Maku Pan Asia's license. However, as we read it, the planning requirements Appendix 5 would seem to determine closure at 9 p.m. unless the planning conditions are changed, and we would support this. The coming and going activity in and out of a late night disturbs the late night tranquility, you might say, of the immediate neighbours, which are on 3 sides of this property: in the road, the flats above and opposite, the residential houses at the rear, and more residential houses on the right as you look at the plan. We have experienced noise.
If I ask you to wrap up, please. Thank you.
Okay. The association has for many years represented for closing time of licensed premises in Hutch End Broadway, and it's generally now accepted that Sunday through Thursday it should be 11:30 for the sale of alcohol and a half-hour drinking up, making midnight closing time. Friday and Saturday, there's arrangements to give a closing time of 1 p.m. next day. These timings are held to be a reasonable compromise between residents' need for sleep and the needs of businesses in the presentation of in the reduction of prevention of public nuisance. This is the license condition for the adjacent property of Fire and Ice, and the Moon and Sixpence, which is historically closes half an hour later. We ask you put these conditions onto the license. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore, on behalf of Hatch and the Presidents Association. Joanna Dukes. BJ Calaria.
Hi there, thank you. So a couple of points. Firstly, super disappointed at the, as I stated earlier, the aggressive tone. Surprised at the reluctantness of the owners to want to change, and having Shankar trying to barter that, because surely this should be something that should be looked at from a resident's perspective, not from, you know, the owner wanting certain demands to be met. The comparisons to Pizza Express are not comparable. I don't understand why a restaurant needs to be open till 2:30 a.m. Which will inevitably cause noise pollution. There's been no checks to establish what sort of noise levels would be undertaken. What would be caused. Moon and Sixpence does cause considerable noise pollution, and this would be a unit closer. Comparing it to licenses that have been granted to Pizza Express are not comparable to what this establishment is trying to create with music, whether it be live or recorded, or however they want to present their argument. Outside, you know, the outside dining issue, the number of covers seems to be, you know, ridiculous. 60 to 70 covers is not a small number. You know, where applications are being changed at the last minute. Again, a bit disappointed not to have been kept abreast of that prior to this meeting. The conditions that have been set are not based on any precedents on any bars in the area. Mr. Chauhan quite kindly pointed out that, you know, other bars shut a lot earlier in the area. Was a bit disappointed that Mr. Chauhan seemed to tee up some responses that seemed to be a bit nice and easy. So you're going to have tables, not dancing areas. That felt a bit coerced. But that's my opinion. You know, there's clearly some planning application issues here that don't seem to add up. The private events, that's still not really addressed and issued. If the owners are going to be aggressive in terms of applying to the letter of the law, those things need to be ratified to ensure that the residents aren't impacted by, you know, private events that might breach those opening hours, live music, etc. It's not helpful that Shankar didn't know the key details of certain elements where, you know, he had the details for other parts where it was key for everybody in attendance to know, but when it came down to certain elements of cover and noise and, you know, setting precedents of other bars didn't seem to add up particularly. Sorry, last couple of points. Smokers outside the front of the pub, outside the front of the restaurant, that's obviously going to cause issues until 2:30 in the morning. People, how are you going to control people that are speaking outside? And that will be directly out the front of our properties. And security guards, again, that's not becoming of Hatch End. We've never had to have security guards since the railway closed, and we know what issues, had you lived in the area, that the railway pub caused whilst it was open. Having security guards outside will affect the property prices in and around, because it shows that there's a requirement or, you know, a danger to the public, and it would put off potential purchasers. That's not been considered. Pizza Express never had opening hours until that late, and therefore any potential purchaser of a property in the adjacent area would be put off by the fact that there is an establishment with a license that's operating to 2:30 on a Friday and a Saturday, and that's not being considered here. Again, I would reiterate the point, why does a restaurant need a license until 2:30? If people are finishing up eating at 11 o'clock, where I assume the kitchen closes, that wasn't confirmed what time the kitchen closes, why would a restaurant require a license until 2 a.m. unless they were considering it to be a drinking establishment between 11 and 3 a.m. or 2:30? Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Claria. TNO Khan. I have Jeff Levine, but I've been notified that Councillor Hinckley wishes to speak on his behalf. Are you present, Councillor Hinckley?
Yes, I am. Good evening, Chair, and thank you very much indeed. I've listened very carefully to all the representations this evening, and largely they are what Mr. Levine is talking about. Mr. Levine actually lives in Oakdean Close, which is a road behind the buildings where this new restaurant is going to open. And he mentioned the question of noise pollution, and I can confirm that that is an issue, because we are very good friends with some people whose back garden backs onto the pub, which is next door. And on a summer's evening, Alice would go to the end of the garden and shout over the fence, "Loudon, it's time to come home." So the noise is really quite something. And there's also the question of light pollution as well. I know that parking issues are not something that's part of this debate, but there are already a problem with cars parking in Hatch End. And from the point of view of noise pollution, where will the extra people go? Because all the roads are full. The Grimsdyke Road car park is full, so they will park in the neighbouring roads. And therefore, it seems to me unreasonable that people will walk down Westfield Park and into Oakdean Close, find a parking space, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, slam their doors. So I feel that Julian Moore of the Hatch End Association has the right balance. We need restaurants in Hatch End. Hatch End is known for its restaurants, and it's good that people are willing to invest in the area, but they also have to be responsible for all the and have a responsibility to all the other residents. And I would submit that the times of closing on Friday and Saturday night are far too late. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hinckley. Trevor Magazzino, please. I apologize if I got that surname wrong. David and Susan Marston. Rita O'Brien.
Rita O'Brien is present, Chair.
I take it you don't wish to speak if you're not coming off mute. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I think everything, the representations that I made in an email have been covered. I would just like to say that I too agree with Mr. Moore's comment. I don't see the necessity to keep the restaurant open till 2:30 on a Friday and Saturday. I think that's going to cause many problems. And I just think if the applicant wants to sort of care about the community and not upsetting, then I think that could be something that they could reduce their hour. I don't see the necessity for an extra hour over and above the other restaurants. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita O'Brien. Kern Panisar. This is very generic, but Mr. and Mrs. Patel. Nigel and Tova Solomon. Subhash Sampat. David Summers.
Thank you, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed, Mr. Summers.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience, Chair and panel, for my previous questions. I think I want to make sure that we're all on the same page, because the applicant's agent has at times made reference to a new plan, which I don't think has been put into the public domain as far as this licensing application, the plan relating to the planning application. I'd like to make sure, licensed panel, that you are working from the plan that was in Appendix 1 and that was published with the licensing application, and not any other plan, which clearly therefore defines the licensable area and what is outside. So we're not working from something different. And therefore, in that respect, I can say that The plan shows that there were 92 covers in the garden area. I appreciate this is covering the garden and the pagoda area, so that's a little bit more than 65 or 75 as appears on some other plan, apparently. My objection is focused very much on noise being one of the issues regarding public nuisance, whereas of course the police have been very much probably focusing on crime and disorder aspects. Of course, with 92 covers in the garden and the pagoda area, there will be significant noise just from the chattering, never mind the food being brought in and out and the glasses chinking, and this will carry over a nearby residential area and much further afield depending on wind conditions. So this is a major issue, and therefore closing it at 11:30 as is now being proposed is somewhat late, and we'd like the panel to consider an earlier closing time for the garden or the outside area, so that there is more peace for the people, the residents who might also want to be outside, particularly on a summer's evening. The noise from the amplified recorded music and dancing, and from 132 covers, which are the people inside the licensed area, as defined in Appendix 1, also will carry outside every time the doors are opened or the windows are opened, and they will again depend on wind conditions, disturb residents. And it isn't just, when we talk of residents, it isn't just the immediately adjacent residents in Oakdean Close or in the flats above or across the road or immediately backing on from Hillview Road. Under the wind conditions, it can extend to a very large area, particularly into Hillview Road and some other roads nearby. So don't just look at it immediately next door. And of course, if this area is used for smokers going in and out, then of course that again allows for noise, music and leakage into the outside area. So again, a reason for closing the garden earlier than 11:30 and working out how on earth people can smoke in a non-public area needs some consideration. Therefore, this means that there should be no food and drink served to the outside area. Let us say after no more, the proposal 11:30, but I would suggest with respect a much earlier hour, somewhere between 7 o'clock and 11:30, maybe 10 o'clock or 9:30 would be a good compromise. I've clarified that it's possible that this can is a takeaway refreshments is a possibility. Food can be taken away and alcohol provided it is with food. So this particularly if we have these extended hours when the other establishments are closed, whether they are in Hatch End or further afield, will become attractive for people to come here to get food and take it away, notwithstanding that that is not the intention of the applicant, but that is a possibility. And it will soon become known that you can get late night food at these late hours with all the consequent disruption, litter, noise, etc. So this should be carefully considered, and maybe a condition should be put that there should be no takeaway food except that is purchased by people who consume food on the premises and perhaps taking away leftover food in their doggy bag, so to speak. There should be a constraint. There should be no future permission for live music, certainly until we've had experience of the performance of this location. Light pollution has been mentioned more than once, and I fully support that. There should be measures to contain light pollution from the garden and the pagoda area, which will disturb otherwise nearby residents. And once the garden area is closed, the lighting should be turned off. Point has been made also about noise and odours from the ventilation equipment. The applicants own a nearby restaurant, I think it's called Darba Social. There has been a continuing problem with the exhaust ventilation from that restaurant. Very powerful, very smelly, and the odour and noise extends over a very large area, despite many complaints and attempts to do something about it. The point has been made that there's no intention to change the existing exhaust facilities of Pizza Express. May I suggest that this is looked at because it could well be that the existing facilities are inadequate, and when they're put to the full use by this establishment with the food they intend to cook, there'll be a significant amount of odours. So I would like there to be specific conditions included in the license about noise and odour from the ventilation equipment.
Could you sum up, please, Mr. Summer?
Yes. We've talked, so therefore I'd like, considering all this noise issues and so on, that in the context of the local area, which has already been described by my colleagues, hours which should be open to the public or private hire for this establishment should be curtailed, allowed to no later than 2300 hours or 2330 at best, certainly not beyond midnight, as is being proposed at weekends. And the hours that are being proposed in the planning application, for example, where it closed at 10 o'clock, would be most wonderful. And of course, there should be customary restrictions on Christmas Day and Good Friday. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. Bina Tanner. Peter Townsend. Nita Badgama. Stella Walker. Dan Ward. David Wheeler. Jean Yo. Tracy Spivak. Mr. Serby. Mrs. Rifkind. Mr. Prince. And final person on my list is Andrew Coogan. Do you wish to speak, Mr. Coogan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to reiterate, slightly enlarge upon one of my points of objection to this, is the protection of children from harm. I just realised when that young man was speaking earlier, who had an apartment adjacent to these premises, that in terms of children, I also mean children of that generation as well. That young man is probably the same age as our children. Having lived in Hatch End for 46 years and brought our children up, we've really enjoyed the restaurant facilities in Hatch End on several occasions and hope to do so in the future. But I cannot see any reason for this particular establishment to stay open any longer than the current establishments which have served Hatch End well for all these years I've known, and probably more. I would seriously ask the panel to consider not allowing the extended hours for this establishment, as it can seriously damage the health of children and the younger residents. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Coogan. Mr. Canary, you got your hand up. I did call you earlier, but you didn't respond. Are you wanting to speak?
I'm hoping that you can hear me this time.
Okay, yeah, if you want to go.
Okay. So thank you. I live in Hillview Road and I've already experienced disturbance and noise from Uxbridge Road. So I'm clearly not keen to see this exacerbated by the excessive hours being sought. This particular, I'm not sure if it's a bar, restaurant or what, nightclub, whatever it's going to be, but the hours are excessive for a restaurant. Previously, the council allowed Pizza Express to operate in the outdoor garden area, but they put limitations on it so as not to use the garden, I think, beyond 9 PM to avoid increased disturbance and general activity at unsociable hours. These are the council's words, and which would detract from the amenities of the occupiers of neighbouring residential properties. This current proposal seeks to completely override this and completely unneighbourly, and seeks to extend the use of the garden daily from 9 PM to 11:30 as a precursor to being open and playing music to either 1 AM or 2 AM in the morning on 6 or 7 days a week, as a precursor previously to a closing time of 3 AM. The limitation of using the garden to 9 PM previously by the council was in itself a concession, as previously the use of the garden was completely restricted. From a neighbour's perspective, it's not satisfactory methodology to carry on ratcheting up noise disturbance until the disturbance reaches breaking point for the neighbours and becomes so unbearable with complaints raining in. This surely cannot be a reasonable method for assessing how seriously people can be disturbed hourly and daily. The prevention is in your hands, and I urge you to enforce the previous restrictions on garden usage to 9 PM and to have a proper opening hours for a restaurant. Who on earth is going to be eating at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning? They're not going to be the locals from Hatch End. Who is it that they're trying to attract into this area? This isn't a small garden use. It adjoins adjacent residential property, and a proposal to go to use 92 covers every night to 11:30. Those 92 covers are packed in, so they are really dense. So it's dense usage and greater usage. There's no question that it will result in the increased disturbance and general activity at unsocial hours, thereby detracting from the amenities of the occupiers of neighbouring residential properties, which was something that the council was trying to avoid several years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Canero. Okay, is there anyone else on the call in relation to the objectors who made representations who wishes to speak? Okay, I shall take silence as no. Thank you for all the objectors for their presentation of their statements. We now move to questioning of the objectors by, first of all, the applicant, or in this case, the applicant's representative, Mr. Shivashankar. Do you wish to make any questions of the objectors?
Thank you, Chair. I'll cover some of these points in my summation, but I don't have any questions at this time, sir.
Thank you. Moving on to the panel and their questioning of the objectors. First of all, Councillor Natasha Proctor, do you have any questions to ask of the objectors?
No, I don't think so. I think they've all made their points very clearly this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ramji Chauhan?
No, I don't. I think they were quite clear in what they wanted to say, so I have nothing to say.
Thank you. Neither do I. May I thank all the objectors for their presentation today. Okay, we now move on to concluding statements. We begin with concluding statements by the objectors. I think a lot of you did cover what you wanted to say in your statements. Does anyone present in relation to the objectors wish to make any closing concluding statements? No? Okay, thank you. Concluding statement by the applicant. Sorry, this was the applicant's representative, Mr. Shivashankar.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and be very short as possible, and we have taken quite a lot of time, obviously. I mean, I've had the opportunity to speak to my client while I was on mute, and especially I have impressed upon him, taken suggestion from the Hatch End Residents Association and Councillor Chauhan and the other members of the panel, and on the basis that he's, I think we will amend the Friday and Saturday hours as well to licensable activities to finish at 1 and the premises to close at 1:30, which also removes the issue with door supervision. I know some of the residents are not very keen to have those supervisors in premises in Hatch End, and this will remove that concern, and also it will bring us back to very close to the previous application hours, except for Friday and Saturday, just an hour later than the current operation hours. We are The other area that regarding takeaways, there is a concern about this premises can turn into an area where people may think that this is an area that they can come later to take takeaways. We are happy to take a condition that there won't be any takeaways available for anybody after 12:30 or after midnight on the day, just for takeaway only. We are more than happy to take a condition of that. So on a normal opening hours, people can take during the opening hours, but on a Friday and Saturday when we go beyond 12:30, we won't be doing takeaways on those hours. So that concludes our so our intention is always to sort of work with the residents, and as you know, the residents also have powers to do reviews. Responsible authorities have powers to take action if we don't behave very well. So they have plenty of recourse if things go wrong, but it is our intention that these hours with these conditions, we won't be undermining any licensing objectives, and I leave it there.
Thank you, Mr. Shivashankar. I noticed there's some hands up. Unfortunately, we can't take any further questions at this stage, as we have to be fair to all parties, and conclude there. However, panel members may want a few final last-minute things clarified. So first of all, Councillor Proctor, do you have anything you want to clarify before we end?
Hi there, yes. So just to confirm, Mr. Shankar, what you've just spoken about, are you saying that it is agreeable with your client that takeaways will be no later than midnight every single night? Fridays and Saturdays, you now propose you will open until 1 AM, but everybody should be off of the premises by 1:30. Also, could you please clarify to me what time people will be allowed in the garden until, in mind that things are closing earlier in your proposal? Is that reflected in the garden closing earlier? And also, can you please just clarify rules around substantial meals along with alcohol being ordered? I just would like some clarity on if people can order drinks at the bar or if they have to be sat down eating to order alcohol to be consumed within the premises. So that's quite a few.
Okay, so the hours are as you suggested, Councillor. So we have reduced the takeaway hours to, I did say 12:30, but I'm happy for 12 o'clock midnight. After midnight, that we won't be doing any takeaway meals all 7 days. And also, you correctly said that we have now reduced Friday hours and Saturday hours for the licensable activities to finish at 1 and the premises to close half an hour after 1:30. The other point is garden. So currently we are looking at 23:30, 11:30. I mean, I don't say that is too late, but I mean, you know, if at all the panel minded to 11 o'clock, we will be happy to empty the garden by 11 on every day, on all 7 days. We are not hoping the garden to be full in weekdays. It's only probably a weekend is probably where the garden will be used much, but regardless, we are happy to close the garden by 11 PM. And there is a condition on ancillary to table meal, madam. So all the alcohol has to be bought ancillary to table meal. That's the condition that we have agreed, and breach of that is a criminal offence. So that's pretty tight. I hope that's all you wanted.
That's really useful to know. Thank you. I'll leave other people to ask some questions too now. Thank you.
Councillor Chair.
I think she answered a couple of my questions which I wanted to ask, but I think he's covered everything what I needed him to say, and I think hopefully the resident will be happy, but we just have to sit down and talk after, to be honest. But I got no questions after that.
Thank you, Ramji. Okay, I have no further questions. So the panel will now withdraw to consider the application and make a decision. The panel's written decision will be sent to all parties within 5 working days, and the panel will give reasons for its decision. So that concludes the public portion of this meeting. I do thank you all very much for joining us this evening, and I wish you all a very pleasant evening, night, or what's left of it. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.